Hi, I'm Weston, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Horrify effect using TikTok Effect House. Let's get started. So let's begin with the most obvious part of the effect, which is the 3D facial deformation. So I'm going to go ahead and add that asset. So we're going to go over to Add Asset, Import 3D Face Binding Mesh. Not to be confused with from computer, we're going to use importing 3D face binding mesh because we want the 3D face object to bind to the person's face. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to import my horrorface.fbx. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag it from the assets folder to the hierarchy, and this is going to put a face, the 3D horror face on our user. You can see that it moves with them, and we can use these deformation values, but it starts with the default texture here. So we're going to fix that. I'm going to go over to horror face. I'm going to press create face texture, and we're going to go over to the face paint texture material, and I'm going to add the horror face texture to it. Now it looks normal, but let's go back to our horror face in the hierarchy, and you can see that it is not normal. It is doing what we want it to do. So this effect is triggered by the user smiling. So we're going to add a facial expression detection node in the visual scripting graph. I'm going to delete the update and start node because we won't be needing them. So here we see we have different executables based on what is happening with the facial expression. We have begin, stay, end, and none. So what do we want to happen? We want the facial expression deformation to happen over time as the person is smiling. So when the smile begins, we can use a transit by time node to have things happen over time. This is a really useful node. If you ever are wondering how do you make something happen over time, it's very customizable. So we want this to take about 1.3 seconds, and we want it to go from 0, which is mouth closed, to 1, which is mouth open. So I'm going to click this set mouth close here, and I'm going to click the component here and drag it to the value. So we want it to go from 0 to 1, so I'm going to type that in. And I'm going to click from stay to this. Now let's see what happens. I'll turn on my camera. So now when I smile, it does it. All right, back to the preview. So we also need to account for when the user stops smiling, it should go back. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to basically undo what we just did. I'm going to add another transit by time node. And when the user is not smiling, so when the smile ends, I will start this one. And we want it to go from whatever value it's at right now back to 0 over the course of how long it takes for the user to smile. So it's a little bit complicated, but I'll walk you through it. First, I'm going to add a timer so we know exactly how long it takes for the user to smile, and I'll cap that timer out at 1 second. So let's turn this value into a variable. I'm going to click this button right here that says variables, and I'm going to add 2 variables. I'm going to add a smile timer, and I'm going to add a smile value. Sweet. I'm going to press set variable for both of these, and now we have those 2 variables. So when the user stops smiling, we want it to store the value that the current elapsed number of the timer is. So it looks like that's working pretty well. We can see that it's live updating in our visual scripting graph. We also want to know the value of the smile when the person stops smiling. Great. Now that we have the smile timer, we can hook that up to our duration, and we can hook this smile value up to our from. Cool. And I'll hook this up to start. Now, let me turn on my camera again. So we want it to unsmile when the transit by time, when the user stops smiling. So we're going to copy and paste our node from up here, the mouth closed node, and hook it up just like this. All right, let's try it out. That's working pretty well. All right. So we need some other stuff to happen, right? We want the eyes to turn red, and we want the background to dim. So I'm going to go ahead and add an object. And let's do the segmentation for the background first. I'm going to do portrait segmentation for that, already built in. We don't want this colorful background, so instead of the background texture, I'm going to select camera texture. And let's go ahead and give us a little darker background here. That looks pretty good to me. And we're just going to do the same thing we did here, but for the background segmentation. I'm going to get this opacity and put that right here. We can copy our transit by time node and just plug it in like this. And when this one begins, this one should start. And now we can see that we should start with 0 opacity actually. We can hook that up there. And now I'll turn my camera on again. It gets darker over time. Great. Okay, we need it to undo the darkness as well. Once again, I'm going to copy and paste this transit by time node. And I'll copy and paste the opacity here. And while this is happening, we'll change the value. This will begin and that will start. And we'll hook up our values here, the from and the duration. Last thing we want it to do is we want the face effect eye color. We want the eye color to change, so I'll add an eye color. We want it to be bright red, so make this as obvious as possible. I think that looks pretty good. Let me see in the camera preview. Oh yeah, that's looking pretty good. See, we already have our effect a little bit. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Copy, I'm going to move this down first. And I will copy and paste this value here. When this begins, that should start. We don't want to do opacity anymore for that. We want to do opacity for the eye. And this, hook that up to stay. We're going to do the same thing for down here. When that begins, this should start. And hook up these values one more time. To and from. All right, let's try this out. Now it looks like my eyes are working. I'm going to refresh the effect here. And I'll make sure that my eye color here is defaulted to 0, just like that. All right, here we go. I think it's looking pretty good. All right, that was the Horrify effect. I hope you enjoyed and have a happy Halloween. Bye-bye.